Hi, I'm Faraz Khan, and welcome to Drag and Drop Low Code Unplugged, the podcast where we explore the game-changing impact of low code in software development. Join me in insightful conversations with IT leaders and passionate low code enthusiasts who are at the forefront of this digital evolution. Together, we'll explore how early adoption of low code is giving businesses a competitive edge on a global scale. We'll discuss its impact on software development, dissect its role in transforming businesses, and uncover the ways in which it's reshaping career trajectories. So whether you're a seasoned IT professional or a curious enthusiast, be sure to tune in as we share success stories and unravel the mysteries of low code. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a front row seat to the revolution that's shaping the future of technology. So let's go. Hi Chris, how are you?
Oh, well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the podcast.
That's quite all right. Looking forward to it.
No, should be good. Should be good. It'd be good to start with you kind of, for those that don't know you, a bit of introduction to yourself and who you are, where you're from.
Well, my name's Christopher Robin Kennedy. I'm based near Aberdeen in Scotland, which obviously has the most glorious weather all year round. It's at least not raining today, so at least that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up near Stirling in central Scotland, and then moved up to Aberdeen for university, and I've kind of stayed ever since.
Fair enough. And what was it? Was it work purpose that made you stay, or just you liked it there?
Um, a bit of both, a bit of laziness, a bit
Okay.
of
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of the first place I'd lived on my own, and I kind of was quite drawn to it with regards
Yeah.
to that. So I was quite happy staying where I was. And
Yeah.
with oil and gas being so
Mm.
prominent in Aberdeen, it kind of seemed like there was a lot of opportunities here. So that's
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of why I stayed. Although that said, I haven't really worked that much in oil and gas, or at
In
least
that,
not on
yeah.
the lucrative end of it, anyway.
Amazing, amazing. So it'd be good to find out and talk about, obviously, we'll be obviously talking about low code and OutSystems and, your journey with that, but it'd be good to kind of talk about where your career began, why you kind of chose to go down that way, and what's led to you kind of being where you are today.
Well, I guess I've kind of always been interested in computer science and that sort of thing. And I actually chose to do an artificial intelligence degree, and it was one of the universities in Aberdeen that was running that. I was probably about 10 years too early.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I have all this like really basic knowledge about AI,
Yeah,
but it came 10, 15 years too
yeah,
early for me
yeah,
to actually
exactly.
use it for anything, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I got a good grounding in actual engineering, the maths, and technical aspects of that, how to think that way. But then actually, when I finished university, I started working in a pub for a good couple of
Nice.
years,
Yeah,
and worked my way up there. And I think the management aspect of that is what kept me
yeah.
interested in doing that. And obviously, there's been a lot of transferable skills from
Yeah,
that, which I've used elsewhere in my career. But essentially, I kind of thought I need to get into something more relevant to my degree.
yeah, of course.
So yeah, moved into IT,
Mm,
and I was just working as service desk, desktop,
mm,
really entry level,
yeah,
first line, second line support. But because of my coding and computer science background, I kind of always drifted more towards the application side of things,
mm,
and that with that, I kind of started trying to teach myself Swift, the Apple
mm,
programming language. And I think through that, I kind of got me the job in my current
yeah,
organization, where I have been since 2018. And, that's where I first started getting introduced to things like low code
mm,
and OutSystems. And, we've kind of built it up from there.
yeah. And when you started at Sparrows, your current company, were you hired to kind of work with low code straight away, or were you hired to do something else?
It was mentioned as part of the job description, but I don't
Okay,
think they had got to a stage where they were properly going to use it for anything. I think they brought
okay.
it in as a demo, kind of seeing what they could do, if there was any use cases that they could use
Mm,
it for. I think the head of IT, um, definitely thought it was a useful tool for the business to
mm,
have, but they hadn't really got the right people to use it.
yeah, yeah.
So I kind of came in mostly to manage and help and support the existing like off the shelf solutions they had. But I did get a chance to experiment and start working with OutSystems, and we really hit the ground running with that with a
Yeah.
couple of apps, and it really built up and took off from there.
Yeah, yeah. So was that 2018 when you,
Yeah, that was 2018. I think
so
that's when
within your kind of, and what was your kind of first thoughts, of low code and our systems and, obviously being new to it, what was your kind of, first impression?
I was actually really impressed with it. I mean, I think from my point of view, because I had done traditional development, with
Yeah,
C++
yeah, yeah,
and stuff like that previously, uh, but I hadn't done enough of it to get into any of the architectural best
yeah,
practices or
yeah,
anything like that. So I actually thought this is actually a really great tool. I can just drag and drop stuff in here.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it actually does something. It took a little while to get used to
Hmm.
how that worked. I was used to being able to assign a variable by pushing equals and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the rest of it. And but as soon as I started getting the hang of it and understanding the way that low code or OutSystems works, I really kind of thought it was such a good tool for being able to build things really quickly.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And obviously, in the last few months, your face has been plastered all over LinkedIn, with
Yeah,
with the OutSystems case story. And obviously in there they talk about, building all this stuff with the one developer. Were you the one developer?
yeah. So for about the first 4 years of my time at Sparrows, I was the sole OutSystems developer. I was still supporting some of the shelf solutions or other
Yeah.
applications that we had, but ultimately I became more and more involved in that. And the more applications we built, the more people wanted them. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago, maybe,
Mm,
that we thought, right, I actually need another person to deal with the backlog we've got, and we promoted somebody into that team, and we got to develop them into
mm.
because they weren't an OutSystems developer before they came in.
Okay.
Um, they'd kind of worked in the organization for a
Mm,
long time as well, and it gave them an opportunity to learn these skills. So, and that's another thing that with the platform, while it does take a while to master all the kind of expert level stuff that you need to do
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
platform, it's actually very quick to pick up. So he was up to
Mm,
speed within a couple of months, being able to be really productive. So that was really impressive without systems as well.
yeah. That's great. And obviously, you being the kind of the sole developer for like 4 years, can you tell us a bit about the project and what was involved? And even kind of, highs that you had, like, some really kind of wins and some challenges even.
Yeah, I mean, well, it kind of started off with a couple of standalone applications almost.
Mm,
There was a need for the business to deal with, defect tracking,
mm,
because the way we were doing it previously wasn't particularly efficient. Is probably the best word
mm.
for it.
Yeah.
Um, and because that was standalone, it didn't really need any other data or integrations with anything. We were able to kind of build, and it's essentially a case management
Yeah.
app. We track this thing through a couple of stages, and people can upload files and photos, and it gets managed. And that was quite successful, and people started realizing that was really good. We then built an application for the movement of goods to track the movement of goods from our stores. So we had a bit of a manual process before that,
Mm,
where guys in stores would have to physically hand in their delivery notes down to stores for
yeah.
them to fulfill it. And so we built an app to manage all of that, and that ended up being a catalyst for things to kind of explode.
Mm,
Um, that was really good. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. That became, and then from then, I guess the challenges were that these apps were so standalone
mm.
that we then wanted to integrate to other things and scale it out. And because we built these applications as like probably not along the lines of architectural best practices as far
Mm,
as OutSystems was concerned, we had to refactor bits.
mm.
So that was a challenge, and it was good learning experience. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but there was a bit of refactoring early just to allow us to start scaling and use that data in other areas. Because we realized pretty early on that we were going to be able to create some form of 360-degree
Yeah.
view of the data that we were collecting for jobs and assets. And so we kind of pivoted quite quickly into designing things so that we could use it like that.
Mm. And someone who kind of, obviously you're kind of on your own on the OutSystem side for 4 years. Usually, obviously, when you're in a larger team, you can kind of, learn things off that people who are senior or just different things. Did you rely more on the stuff on OutSystems website, the tutorials, the community, or how did you kind of go about when you were stuck with things?
I mean, to our first deployment, so the first app that we completed, that defect app, we actually got an OutSystems partner to
Okay.
support us deploying it.
Mm.
And I didn't realize it was genuinely a case of just picking which modules you wanted and clicking
Yeah.
deploy, and that's it. I
Yeah.
thought there would maybe be more to it. So they pointed out some, things to make sure you're
Yeah.
doing, a little bit of a checklist
Mm.
for what you need to go through before you deploy. So that was really useful from that aspect. I got a little
Mm.
bit of information there, but the guided paths that were on
Mm.
OutSystems site, the community of OutSystems is obviously a big
Yeah.
asset to that as a platform, and I found a lot of support and help there if I had an issue.
Yeah.
And then we've also used over the last couple of years, like an OutSystems consultant that
Mm.
we'll use to increase our bandwidth or deal with anything that's a little bit
So,
more tricky
yeah.
um, than kind of out the box OutSystems. So that's been really helpful to learn
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
of them as well. So
Yeah. Amazing. And since you've been using OutSystems, there's been various things released, over the time. What were some things, from when you started till now that were released that really kind of helped your day-to-day job and the project in a whole?
um, the I guess one of the main things from my perspective, because as an being in part of IT, we had a very manual starters, levers, and movers process. So we'd get
Mm.
emails that were triggered from the HR system, and then the guys would physically go and log into
Yeah.
Azure, create the email address, create the
Yeah.
account, sort out their access. We'd have to get another form from line managers to say what apps they needed to, and
Mm.
it wasn't perfect. It wasn't bad. Like, we were able to get everyone accounts when they needed it, and disable them when they weren't needed anymore. But it did take a lot of effort. And what we were able to do with OutSystems was automate most of that process. So the the new start being triggered in the HR platform, us manipulating that data in OutSystems, and then integrating that to another service to create the accounts and the email addresses. So it all meant that the whole process was automated and we didn't have to touch it as much, which saved
Mm.
us a lot of time and effort. So we've been able to work on, as IT, we were able to work on much more value adding
Yeah.
projects for the business.
Mm. Okay. And kind of doing all the development, obviously being a developer for a while, and you obviously, you've mentioned it's on your kind of LinkedIn as well. You did an MBA as well. What kind of drove you to do that, on top of your kind of job?
Um, I think the as part of me working at Sparrows, or
Mm.
I kind of had an eye on progressing, but
Mm.
also the role I was doing, I was kind of mixing a bit of business,
Yeah.
analysis with um, being a kind of technical authority, and
Mm.
I found myself, especially when we were dealing with more financial minded applications or
Mm.
financial kind of based applications, that I didn't know enough about how the business actually works as a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And it also came down to things like if we were going to buy a system off the market or build
Mm.
something, then I wanted to actually be able to compare those two fairly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I enjoy the management and leadership part of my role as well. So all
Mm.
those kind of aspects came together, and an MBA seemed like a really good fit
Yeah.
for giving me those skills that would allow me to kind of elevate through the business further, and have a better understanding of how everything works.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, so you're more in a kind of manager's position now. Are you still
Mm.
involved in the developing, or are you more kind of overseeing, or what's your kind of, how's your role kind of changed?
I still think I'm doing a good chunk of the development.
Okay.
Again, it's partly because I really enjoy it.
Okay.
Um, that I like keeping my keeping at it and
Yeah.
developing more. Um, but I find that the both kind of sides work well
Yeah.
together, and I'm able to manage a team and everything else that comes with it, as well as getting on with these projects and developing as well. So
Yeah.
it's not, I still do a lot of the development, just not all of it now.
Yeah. I guess, or you know, at the same time, you want to always make sure you're updated with what's going on as well. So it's good to be involved a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess from that aspect, I'm the kind of focal point for if anyone's wanting something built in the business. So I have an idea of everything that's going on. I know what the backlog looks like. I know who to speak to regarding like what particular problem or what particular area of the business is required. And I guess that's been a skill of mine and the position I've got to allow me to have that kind of visibility of what's going on and where the pain points are and
Mm,
how we can best help.
yeah. And, you know, like you mentioned, you know, you studied kind of AI a long time ago. And, you know, there's a number of all, you know, you're in Portugal. Most of the kind of talk was about the new features, AI, things like that. What's kind of your view on that? Have you kind of played around with things already yourself? Have you, in your current role, been kind of, you know, using those tools or, you know, looking into it just in to kind of set things up for the future?
Well, with regards to OutSystems, the platform you mentioned,
Mm.
the conference in Lisbon, some of the AI tools that they've developed for the platform, so the kind of suggested actions when
Yeah.
you're doing the actual development, I use those quite a lot. But AI Mentor Studio was a really big tool
Mm.
for us, and I'll talk at length on this if you want me to. But um, we've used that to really reduce our technical debt. But what
Mm.
that's also helped me as a developer using OutSystems is it's increased my skill and
Yeah.
my understanding of the three-layer canvas and
Mm.
what the best practices are, which I didn't really have any visibility of. So I
Yeah.
really liked the AI Mentor Studio as a tool. I think it's really good for keeping everything neat and tidy and scalable
Yeah.
and maintainable, and it gives you really good insight into how the quality of the code that you're building.
Hmm.
So that's one of the tools I find really, really helpful. Um, with regards to AI tools outside of the platform, I mean, we use ChatGPT every now and again to figure out what some JavaScript does
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
hands up, I'm not a traditional
Yeah.
coder. So there'll be times where I'm like, I just don't understand what this particular component's
Mm.
doing. So I'll tuck the code into the chat GPT so it'll tell me what it does.
Yeah.
Obviously anonymized, there's no actual business data going in there, but
Yeah.
it's a good tool for that. Um, but we haven't really found many ways for including that in the business. There are some
Yeah.
things we could do with it, but
Mm.
I think it's just finding the right cases and making sure it's secure and
Yeah.
that sort of thing is kind of the
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
concerns we'd
Yeah.
have.
And what's your kind of you know, obviously there's all this talk about AI in the future and developers' jobs, and what's your kind of personal view on one, you know, the future of low code, and two, kind of adding AI in the mix?
Um, I mean, while I think that AI is going to accelerate a lot. The low code obviously accelerates the development, but there's
Mm.
still a space for traditional
Yeah.
development. There's either there'll be a limit or a ceiling that you can achieve with a lot of low code solutions. That's why there's some
Mm.
components that are built using JavaScript or
Yeah.
Python that
Yeah.
you can plug in. So there obviously are areas where you just need to be able to do that. And I think the same is going to be with AI. I think a lot of use cases for where artificial intelligence would be useful, where you only have to be better than a human, you know,
Mm.
and that's a really low bar, really, when you think
Yeah.
about it. But I still think us as a society and people would still want to have that control. So I think it's going to end up being more of a tool to help than to replace in a
Mm.
lot of instances. But there is a lot of use cases where you can automate, but that I guess those use cases are the same for low code or
Yeah.
other development practices where you can automate workloads and stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously when you studied with AI, do you, all those things you learned obviously back then, are they kind of being spoken about now, or they're kind of just like, obviously you would have heard things that, are they being spoken about currently, or they're just kind of past that now? Is what you learned still relevant today?
Yeah, well, I think that's why I said I think it was about 10 years too early.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
a lot of what we learned was how to make things intelligent. So we did artificial neural networks, for instance, and that
Mm,
is a lot of how they train um, machine learning models.
mm,
Um, but I don't think I'd be able to put any of that into practice into where we currently are. I think
yeah,
the step's going to be quite advanced. Um, and back then, you didn't have these massive organizations like Microsoft or Nvidia
yeah, yeah,
putting so much time and effort into it and computing power into it that I don't think while I understand the kind of concepts around what AI is doing, I don't think I'd
yeah,
be able to actually
yeah,
push that boundary any.
yeah, 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 yeah. And with the platform, obviously you're using it for about 6 years now. Is there anything in there that it doesn't offer that you'd like to see in the future, that would kind of make your life easier?
Um, I think one of the challenges we've found is when we've added another developer into it.
Mm,
Um, the fact that there's not really branching, like version control branching within OutSystems is something which can be a bit prohibitive. While it's very intelligent at being able to say, look what's changed since you last published,
mm,
it would be really useful for us to be able to isolate certain features we're working on,
mm,
especially when we still need to make deployments to that application. So if we're working on a new feature or an update, we still need to be able to resolve bugs or
yeah,
make small changes that the business might still require. And that's really difficult because we need to build everything with a wrapper around it
yeah,
so that we can
yeah,
manually turn it on and off. So that's one thing I wish there was.
mm,
Because that is one of the things. Like I think there's a bit of a cliche with all development teams even traditional. Like one developer can do something in
yeah,
the
yeah,
same time that two developers can do something. There's
yeah,
that lack of productivity that you get when you're just learning to work with someone else, but
yeah,
also making sure you're not stepping on each other's toes. And that's been a bit of a challenge, I think, for
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. And how big is your team now at the moment?
There's two developers on OutSystems, but our
Two.
systems team's three. So
Yeah,
um, we obviously support all the rest of the off the shelf solutions that we've got.
yeah, yeah. When I was reading your kind of case study, I think, what kind of is great about it is, low code promotes less developers to build, these projects compared to traditional. And I think the fact that you were the only developer for 4 years, definitely it's a good example that it's not just being said, it is possible, definitely. Did you find at times, being the only developer, you needed support, or you were kind of like, yeah, the platform gives me enough to be able to deal with it?
I think um, based on the sheer amount of work and demand we got from the business, maybe that was where we'd need the bandwidth
Yeah.
to increase. I think there's maybe more that we could have done in that time.
Mm.
Um, but obviously, me limited to one developer, we can work on maybe one or two apps at the
Yeah.
same
At
time.
the
But
time,
outside of
yeah.
that, you start becoming as productive. So in that regard, I think maybe we could have used
Mm.
a bigger team. But at the same time, you've got to think about how the business and it's like how the business can manage that change, like
Yeah,
constant
sure.
change. And so we didn't want to end up with the business having change fatigue or, you
Yeah.
know, if we're building a new app every kind of couple of months and they're
Mm.
having to change processes and we're having to
Mm.
remove stuff and add new things, it gets very frustrating for some
Mm.
users because that was the other good thing without systems is a lot of the apps we were building was for the same core group of users.
Yeah.
So they got more tools to use, but it did mean that we were changing how they worked as part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that we didn't want to go too fast because
Mm.
you
Of
lose out in adoption or
course,
people
yeah.
miss how they should be using it. So I personally feel that we were in a good
Yeah.
cadence with what the
Mm.
business could handle. Um, but yeah, we definitely could have done more in that time if we had more
Yeah.
developers, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And someone who kind of, you obviously, when you joined the company, you didn't join to work, you didn't go out looking for low code roles, right? You started the job and it was kind of presented to you. Someone who now has been working with it for a while. Are you kind of now a fan invested in it, that's the career you want to follow, continue doing it, or
Um,
it's or
yeah, I
something,
mean,
or you wouldn't mind something else.
I think you're right with. I didn't have any idea. I didn't even know what low code was. I didn't even know what
Yeah.
OutSystems was before we started. The I kind of mentioned it when I was in my interview. Oh, do you know anything about OutSystems? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm a massive fan of it. With the MBA, obviously did a lot of um like projects on our business and also
Mm.
kind of other businesses as part of the coursework, and I kind of realized that OutSystems or low code in general is maybe not just OutSystems here, but
Yeah.
it's a really good digitalization tool. That's one of the key focuses for businesses, trying to increase their or speed up their journey to keep up, catch
Yeah.
up, And I think low code is such a great tool for that. Because you can do so much so quickly with so few resources. And
Yeah.
because of that, and because you've not really invested as much as say buying in an ERP system,
Yeah.
if you've not got it quite right, you can improve it or you can change it or you can replace it. And
Mm.
it allows a lot more flexibility with what the
Yeah.
business can do and everything. So I think they're great for that. It's a
Yeah.
great tool for that.
Yeah. It ties in good to my next question. Obviously, the whole reason for the podcast is to create awareness, and there are several people, like, the situation you're in. We still speak to people today sometimes where what's low code, or what's out systems, or whatever platform we're talking about. And the goal of this is to create awareness, and um let people know that you can have successful careers, if you follow this path of working with low code. So what's your kind of message, or to those people who are not kind of believers, or just, or even if you've already had a conversation with someone in the past who's been not convinced with low code, what would be your kind of response?
I'm completely converted into
Yeah.
to OutSystems and low code. I think it's a great tool. So, and I guess my passion for that, you go to the OutSystems conferences and they're preaching to the choir a little bit. Um, but I think through OutSystems, my position in the company's like grown, or my influence in the
Mm,
company's grown. So with that regards, I think it's helped my career a lot.
mm,
Um, you know, I'm kind of getting into a stage now where I want to be more in the management strategy
mm.
leadership side of it.
Yeah.
But I still think that having a low code solution as part of your arsenal allows you
Mm,
to go after problems or fix problems or you know try things or innovate things a lot quicker than you could if you were looking for something in the market all the time. So I think it's a really good tool for organizations to have. Um,
mm,
even if your strategy is, we're just buying best of class, there's always going to be some integration or there's always going to be
yeah.
some automation in there that if you had a low code system, you could plug those gaps. If I know people use uh, low code systems to expand SharePoint
Mm,
functionality. So there's loads of different low code tools out there, and
yeah.
there'll be one that matches you. But I think it's really important or I personally feel it's really important for businesses to have that as part of their whether it's IT or not.
Yeah.
It's a really important tool to have.
Mm. And yeah, last year, we met in Portugal. Was that your first conference, or you'd been to one before in person?
Uh, yeah, I went to the last one that was in person in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Okay,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
so that was really good. I was really fortunate to get to go to that. I guess since then they'd put a focus on having one for like the executive
Yeah, yeah.
future customers,
Except for, yeah,
and
yeah.
then another one on
Developer
like the
conference. Yeah.
developers. So yeah, I think that made a really big difference because, as I said, you're preaching to the choir a lot of the time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
A lot of the time at these conferences, and a lot of the people
Yeah.
there are on varying levels of success
Mm,
with the
yeah.
platform and what their company's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really great to see, and it's really kind of inspiring to see.
Yeah.
Oh, there's people actually pushing the boundary even further here, and
Yeah, yeah.
gave me some ideas of what we could try back at
Mm,
our company. So the conferences are great in that regard.
yeah.
It's not just a go and get as much free stuff and pens and stuff as you can. But I found
Go
them
to
really,
go to
really
nice sunny
useful.
Portugal for a couple of days.
Yeah. Um, but no, I found them really, really useful, even from a networking perspective. You find
Yeah.
people that you can go and ask questions to, or
Mm.
likewise, I'm more than happy to pass on my knowledge. I don't think we've ever really been too precious about not sharing what we've developed,
Yeah.
because if we can help someone else along the way,
Yeah, of
then
course. Yeah.
that's great, you know. So
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think when we were there, we found there were kind of a lot of people who are like they might be certified, but they haven't found their first job, for example, or they're, kind of there was a few people who I met who they were developers and their company had just adopted OutSystems, hadn't started the project yet, but they'd come over for the conference. And I think even speaking to them, they were quite surprised of the turnout, how it was, everyone was kind of, even though we've been remote for years and there's been no conference, you'd think everyone it's quite easy to kind of just talk to people and ask
yeah,
questions, which is really good. I think it's quite fun. And I think everyone's glad it's back to face to face.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, and obviously, like you've said, preaching to the choir, you're kind of convinced. But have you ever looked at any other low code platform just to compare or just see what they offer? Or has the business even thought about that?
Um, as far as I've been there with Sparrows, I don't think we've looked at another tool. I think
Mm.
they're at the start they definitely looked at other
Yeah.
tools, and obviously OutSystems at the time seemed like the best fit. I mean, I've looked at some other low code platforms. I mean, I'm really aware of
Mm.
the Power Platform, Microsoft's
Yeah.
Power Apps and Power Automate, and
Mm.
you know, I think they've maybe in a way missed a beat, because how many organizations, like almost every organization I've worked for has been a Microsoft stack
Yeah.
customer, you know,
Yeah.
like, and I think they maybe missed a step of not jumping on that sooner, because it
Mm.
allowed companies like OutSystems to become quite
Yeah.
established.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's a great tool. Like Power Platform's a great tool for, especially for like internal use cases, and
Yeah.
you know, automating small forms and processes, and it's great
Mm.
for that. What I would say though is that I, I haven't really seen anything of Mendex. We've spoken about that a few
Mm.
times,
Yeah.
about how they've become quite prominent,
Yeah.
and that's obviously quite a complete low code platform.
Yeah.
And I have seen more people on LinkedIn that are got
Yeah.
certifications in both
Yeah.
OutSystems and Mendex. So
Yeah.
I think it's good for there to be that kind of competition in the market,
Mm.
and forces and ensures both sides
Yeah.
are innovating as much as possible to try and you know improve things. So that's only a good thing.
Yeah.
But I haven't really had my hands on any other low code platforms other than
Yeah.
OutSystems, and even to an extent, I've been a bit defensive of the apps we've built and a bit defensive of OutSystems because I've been so bought
Yeah. Of
into it.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm happy to have my eyes opened, and I'm not against you trying anything else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I guess it's good for the low code market in general anyway, because it shows people from traditional that low code is growing. Doesn't matter what platform. There are companies, heavily invested in, everyone's trying to make their platform the best, so
yeah.
the fact that these companies are investing that money into it, it is definitely something, and it's not going to go away.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's solidified itself as it's not just a trend or somebody's kind of,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people maybe thought the same about AI when it first started coming out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just a trend. Nobody's actually going to use it for anything.
Yeah.
And I think maybe low codes maybe went a little bit under the radar because of
Mm.
AI and everything
Yeah.
else. Um, so yeah, I think it's a great it's a great thing for the market, but it's also great for low code and having these
Yeah.
really established players in it. Doesn't seem like
Yeah.
anyone's just going to give up. I think that's
Yeah.
maybe one of the concerns people have with low code platforms. If you're
Mm.
really invested in OutSystems, and they just go, no, we
We're
can't
done. Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then what are all the customers meant to do
What's
who have
gonna
been
happen? Yeah.
relying on this, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's good in that regard that these companies are being quite successful. And
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And just the final question, you've kind of, it's been interesting hearing your journey, and you've kind of touched on it, you're kind of really interested in the strategic side. Is that your kind of goal, your personal goal going forward, to be more kind of obviously one involved in low code and out systems, and continue kind of more of the management side of things, but still obviously have a bit of a play around with the development side.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying the leadership and strategic and management aspects
Mm.
of my role now, and then I want to do more of that. But at the same time, I, I guess I know that low code's such a great tool, so I'm
Yeah.
like, if I can get in a position where I can put my mark on a bit of strategy, then I can
Yeah.
show how good low code can be for the company. So, and I get that opportunity here. I'm
Mm.
the kind of focal point for all these apps we build,
Yeah.
and get to help the business, with building more applications and solving more problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to keep an eye on both. I
Yeah.
know it's as you go up the ranks, you kind of lose you don't get to
Yeah.
play the
Yeah.
tools
You'll
so
you'll
much
you'll have to
anymore.
fight for
But
the development, I think.
yeah, so there's still something I like about it. But
Yeah.
I do understand that I'm potentially not like the most skilled developer in the world, and I know there's people that are much better than me from a technical aspect. Um, and which is why I quite like the management aspect as well,
Yeah.
because I can do both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to just continue working with low code and OutSystems.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Chris. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it'll be a lot of people will be interested to hear what you had to say. Obviously, I think most people would have seen the short videos of you, so now they can have a longer
Yeah.
version.
Oh, there's an even longer version of that video. To
Oh,
be
is
fair, I
there?
think
Okay, okay, okay. I
yeah.
saw the
So
short one. It keeps popping up on my feed, so
yeah,
it's good that they're pushing out, which is great.
yeah.
Um,
But we did the case study obviously, and then they asked me if I wanted to be interviewed at
yeah,
Lisbon. So I took the opportunity
yeah, yeah,
to tell my story there. I'm surprised they wanted to know anything about it, to be honest. But
yeah, yeah,
that's great. And every kind of couple of days or every couple of weeks, I'll get my LinkedIn will go mental because
yeah. That's
everyone's
good. That's great. Yeah, that's
liking
great.
a
Yeah, it's
video of
good.
me, and I'm like, I didn't
Yeah,
realize I'd put a video up. Oh wait, without systems sharing that again.
yeah,
But
yeah,
no, it's great, and I'm glad that it seems to be getting seen by people, and I think
yeah.
if anyone wants to reach out to me about my experience with low code, or
Mm,
if there's anything I can do to help, or any kind of synergies that we can work on, I'm more than happy to have people reach out and speak to me. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah,
Sounds good. Amazing. Well, thanks again. And we'll keep in touch.
yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Great speaking to you, Faraz. Have a good
You
day.
too. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode, which is brought to you by ITRAC. We are a leading staffing firm that solely specializes in supplying both contract and permanent low-code professionals to organizations globally. Navigating the niche landscape of the low-code market requires the best talent, and we recognize its critical importance for our clients. Whether you're a company looking to strengthen your team, an individual seeking the next career move, or someone entirely new to the world of low-code, we're here for you. Our extensive experience and in-depth market knowledge enables us to quickly pinpoint the ideal candidates while offering expert advice and support at every stage of your low-code journey. Reach out to us through our website or connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to assist you. Thank you once again for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another insightful episode. Until then, take care.